Us on what's happening next.
Yeah, look, all right. So look, we have conferred with the auditor to get some sense of where materiality and risk and so on lie. And there is, look, we do go back to the advice that the program should be as it is presented and left. And we note what is said in the consultation document that on page 13 that talks about the fact the final shape of the new government's priorities will not be confirmed until later in the year. And if the funding priorities impact on the proposed transport work program, the council will consider options and where appropriate consult the community. So look, I think it's getting signalled that we really need to wait until we see what is the funding envelope, what we get, and then we bring it back and you have a look at the program in its totality once you know that. Until that point arrives, I think our advice is that we are probably speculating around a good deal of funding uncertainty.
Yep, totally understand. So, do we leave everything until September? What's the cunning plan?
That's
Suggested until we. So I'll just answer that one. So I think the advice is from your team that we leave everything
leave
until,
it as it is. Yep, take the program as
until the decision's made, which we're anticipating is September.
Yes, that is it.
Okay, Tyler?
Thank you for indicating that. So you're saying keep it as is where is for now, wait for September for the review, but with those ones that are not on budget at the moment, which is inclusive of Te Aratai and Simeon Street, things like that, are you saying that there is possibility of bringing those into the program come annual plan or come September?
I think you could. I think you could bring them in, and if you're going out to the community, I don't see why you couldn't then go to the community and say, we want to include these, give us your views. Look at the whole thing would be a position, I think, in my colleagues here, but I don't see why you couldn't do that, because you're talking about a program of work and you're able to say, this is our funding for the work, what matters to the community.
We'd be consulting again.
You'd be consulting again, that's correct.
Okay, Victoria, because let's quietly move along, please.
So that was
Wait till
my question, picking up on that. You referenced reviewing it again in September, but the consultation document said where appropriate consult with the community, so it's already anticipated that we could go back out for further consultation on this particular issue. And does that require a special consultative process?
Would you like me to? Yes, please.
Is there anything precluding us from doing that?
Potentially you could do it that way, but you remember we did a variation on that with Te Kaha, which was not a standard local government act consultation. But I think it's important to remember that this is not just about the uncertainty of funding and the September period about funding. It's also the materiality triggers that we're dealing with 12 hours from now. And they're quite real. So if you take the two on balance, the advice from Bede, I think, is very sound. Ordinarily, you would say one factor may be not enough, but you have two factors in play there that are very strong when you see them together.
So, referencing the certainty of funding and the materiality triggers, two things I want to ask. One is, if you come back in September when the GPS is confirmed and we come to this table for a decision on whether we consult with the community or not, because that's probably where it will come to, and recognising the political aspects of cycleways, we could probably guess whether it goes to the community or not. So the materiality is triggered again. And if the vote, if we continue with the amendment today, and I have a mandate from my community to pursue this amendment as a first option, which I will endeavour to do if I can, if it fails and this project remains in there, acknowledging that there will be a review in September, we still have a problem of only having 22 million on budget and we may need 34. Do you then have to find the extra 34 and introduce it to the budget, and will it have a rates impact because you're introducing new money?
Well, I think through you, Your Worship, that's where you would consider the community may say, for instance, and I don't know, that this project they do or they don't want it to go ahead, or they might say, well, if you've only got a pot of money to spend, these are the priorities that we want. I think it's until we see the shape of the budget we get and until we put forward the projects and the costings, it's quite difficult for us to say here at this point in time, you're going to need extra money, because you might say, well, here's the pot of money we have, this is what we're going to spend, but you don't know that pot until you get the funding envelope from NZTA.
One of my concerns is that we may never get back out to the public to consult on this, to get their views on it, because it may get stopped at this table.
Okay. Right. So,
Yeah.
Karen,
So
we've got one more.
just to clarify, I think I've got this right, and please, Peter or Bede or Russell object, is in September, that is the point that we will have all the information, and at that point you'll be able to make a decision around two things. One is around consultation and one is around how it's funded and of course how it's prioritised. So at that point you'll decide, is it necessary to consult or not, or do you have enough information to know community views as the legislation says you can. If you do decide you have to consult, and that will be based on a significance assessment from under the policy, it'll be then a decision whether it's the SCP or a faster and quicker consultation.
Yes, that's good.
In terms of the funding decisions, they will be decisions about, can it be funded from within the existing program? Would be one option. Does it, or can it be funded by rephasing the programs or changing the program, or does it need new money? Mm-hmm. So those are the decisions that you can't really make until September, till you have all the facts and information in front of you. To clarify Councillor Henstock's questions, if a project doesn't have a sufficient budget, nobody can go ahead and start it. So if the budget has blown and there's not funding on the budget for it, it is not going to proceed without a revised budget.
And that's a funding decision gateway for us then,
Yes.
Yes.
because the only funding on budget is the 22 million.
Yes, that's right. So the only decision that can be made, Tony just told me what it was. He disappeared.
Down the back.
Down the back, in terms of the CE can only make a funding decision if it's actually urgent and imperative, and it's only up to such and such. So, and I guarantee I would not be making a decision on transport without consulting you. So you will be,
Okay.
it will come to this table.
So I think it's pretty clear where we've got to head. We've got one more question. 1, 2. Sarah?
One person, several questions, sorry. So with the transport program, if we're deferring the discussion on the amendments until we get the Whakatahi funding thing, is that the whole transport program, or is it just the things that we've got flagged as amendments? Because actually staff are going to need to get on with doing the regular BAU transport program work in the meantime. Just saying, because we don't want to have to wait 4 months until we can do some road stuff.
So we'll be getting on with the normal BAU program, and the program as we've got it, we'll be getting on with it, but we will be back around the implications of the funding and how that comes out. So we'll need to take a risk-based approach to it. Some of it we will be finishing up, but we need to keep going with our maintenance ops and renewals program, which is the bulk of what the issue of the program.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
the maintenance ops, but it's the actual specific projects that are going to be debated.
Yeah.
And can I also clarify, and we talked about this briefly before, and I think we're going to need it in a resolution, about the couple of transport choices projects, Te Aratai and Simeon Street, and because they're not currently in the LTP, do we need a specific resolution to make sure that they come back at the same time so that they can be considered as part of that funding package?
I can't see any barriers
see
to that.
I think that's fine.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
The
That's good.
resolution that,
Already got
that
a
they are
resolution.
considered in September alongside the
No,
rest of
because
the
it's
program.
the resolution talks about bringing a future annual plan or long-term plan, and the September
sixth.
discussion is not annual plan or long-term plan, it's separate to that. So we would need a separate resolution
Okay.
to
Would
mitigate.
you
Sorry,
just move
can I
all the
just check
transport choices ones in that list then?
So that's that.
Didn't all have
some
amendments.
that. Just be clear that you would need to put a motion and get enough numbers. But by the sounds of things, the other councils you'll end up with a very long list if we're bringing other things in as well.
Yeah. The other one is that we're at a point in the process now where it looks like we're changing what we'd agreed earlier. So earlier in the day, and we've checked several times, we discussed going through all of this, getting through all of the amendments, and then if they were over that material threshold, coming back and reprioritising. And so it looks like we're not going to do that now. And one of the things that, if I'd known that, I'd have changed earlier or suggested earlier, is that we did the transport stuff such as Te Aratai and Simeon Street earlier in the day, and then maybe it would be some of the other projects that we were saying that's a bit too far.
No, so this is my understanding is that that's what we were planning to do, but we got heads up from the auditor that they're watching that the auditor is looking at transport in isolation, and they are not looking at it compared to all the other changes that have been made today. This is the transport program that they are commenting on.
Yeah, I think there is. I think that the transport program has particular risk because of the funding uncertainty that's attached to it, and so we need to be careful about moving projects in and out of that funding envelope.
Yeah.
And what you've already agreed as a program.
Yeah, no, the two projects, just to clarify though, that I'm talking about are ones that are not in the program, and they are ones that would not get Waka Kotahi funding. So they're not part of that sort of uncertainty piece. And I'd have chosen to vote on those earlier in the day and maybe given up something different.
The things that have already passed from other programs would have made no difference to whether these were done earlier or not, would they? That's my understanding.
Okay,
That's-
right.
yeah,
Moving right
thanks.
along. Jake?
In September, just the mechanics. We go out, we talk about all the projects. If we wanted to put new money in to new cycleways or current ones that have gone over budget, how does that work technically? Is that a matter of us basically borrowing for it and then we do the wash up at the next annual long-term plan, or do we amend the LTP at that point there? What did we do for the stadium?
There's tons of options.
Right.
So
So we're not bound. That's really the heart of my question.
Your council is never actually bound. You can do almost anything you like with powers of general competence if you use the right process. So you could find new money, you could move money from somewhere else. If council agrees and follows a process, it can do it.
Sounds good. Second question, because it's late. My colleague made a comment about that she wants to pursue stopping the wings to wheels or removing it from the budget here now. Would that be material? Yes. So my understanding was that if we're going to agree to talk about this in September, it has to be both.
Yeah. Well, materiality is both up but also down.
It's movement.
It's movement.
Yeah.
So, all right, on that basis, then I'm happy to move forward.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, a couple of questions. The first one is because it said that if it goes over budget of 22.7 million, that it would trigger extra funding. But often we hear, and numbers up, I'll throw one out there because it's been around plenty of times, $17 million added to a cycleway can just be found out of existing budgets.
No.
There's a term you hear around the table and it gets added on and it's just, can that happen with this?
No, you wouldn't add. No one's got authority to add $17 million to a program. It would first have to go through the PMO change process and then come to the state. Come to F&P. Comes to F&P. Change request.
So remind me where we found the extra 17 million for the cycleway. We didn't have it. We haven't yet.
No.
So is that being added on in this LTP? Right. Right, okay. Is that correct?
We don't need it. But
It's in
there is a-
existing budgets.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a term that gets used here all the time. Yep.
So I'm not sure. Are you talking about Norway Stark?
Yeah.
Because we're going to talk to that tomorrow. There was that project can be built. It can be constructed within the budgets that are sitting on the draft LTP. Yeah, but it wasn't 17 million. Oh yeah. So yeah, but it's not. Yeah.
The point we're making is the increase was factored into the draft LTP.
Yeah, and we raised that
that's-
with you as part of this process, and that was
Correct.
done.
That's what we're getting to. So that's different to what Aaron's saying, which is if it was outside of a normal cycle, it would come to council for approval, whereas this one has been baked into the draft LTP. Yes. Yep.
Thank you. Good clarification. And then, don't apologise. It is all confusing. With Harewood Road, with Wheels to Wings, what does Section 1 mean?
So
Yeah. Okay. I'll get the definition from
cycleway.
Jake. Jake, what's Section 1?
It's the one at the start or the end, depending on which way you go.
So, but in this case, which one is it? What's that?
Righto,
No, it's not.
righto.
It's at the other end. But
We're all starting to lose the will.
know.
all of the cycleways have multiple sections.
Melanie, and then I think that we'll call it to a finish there.
I
We'll
haven't
have to make a
finished.
resolution.
Yeah. Melanie, sorry, won't say that. Okay, we have to read. Yes, Aaron.
Yeah. What does Section 1 mean in these reports? Because there's 9.2 million on budget. Is the 9.2 for just Section 1?
Yes.
It is. And I do note that all the designs for the entire sections all go lumped onto Section 1, don't they?
Because we've already got a draft
Yeah.
LTP.
Okay.
Thank
so
you,
just
Right,
clarifying that.
we need
Thank
a
you.
resolution. Is that right, Mary?
Yep, so, we're putting up a draft resolution, I've just written now.
As we speak.
We will need to check this with the people that have spoken to the, auditor, that we've got this correct.
Should we go up to
Funding is
compose some words or?
Let's see. Do you want some help?
Sent throughout.
Do you want us to go up?
Express.
No. Mary, do you want us to come up to do some words?
Yeah. Just, it doesn't need a whole crowd, just one or two. Sorry.
B, do you want me to come?
Yeah, oh yes, we've got it on the screen. But if you want what's on the screen changed.